I'm Mark Frederick, your host for Where Everyone Plays a Part, an ongoing web series produced by the Community Theater of Terre Haute, Indiana. Later in this episode, we'll be spending some time in conversation with Gary Greiner, current president of the Community Theater of Terre Haute's Board of Directors. While community theater is all about producing live theater for the community, we're still a not-for-profit business, and that business has to be well attended to in order to keep us alive and viable year after year. And we'd like you to know better just what a community theater board of directors does. But before we start, we want you to know that you can help us considerably by clicking the like and subscribe buttons below and adding public comments. All those things are critical to expanding the reach of this web series to people across the country and beyond. And in those comments, please tell us what you'd like to know about. We want to create future videos that you'll be interested in watching. Having been founded in 1926, the Community Theater of Terre Haute has been providing high-quality live stage theater for nearly 100 years, making us one of the oldest community theaters in Indiana and among one of the oldest in the nation. Our proud tradition has led us to adopt the clear mission of entertaining, educating, and enriching the community through the dramatic arts. And not only within the confines of Terre Haute itself, but to our broader regional base of volunteers, patrons, and friends as well. As part of our commitment to the community outreach, we've developed this web series to serve three purposes. The first will be to acquaint you with our upcoming live stage productions. CT produces around 6 live shows each season, both on our main stage with an auditorium that accommodates over 300 people, and on our Oakley stage, an intimate setting that can accommodate up to 40 people. Before each production date, we'll be creating a video presenting the show, providing some background on the show's story, and to general information regarding things like show dates, how to purchase tickets, and some special things you might want to keep in mind as the show moves along. We believe that as you know more about the specific shows themselves, you'll have a more enriching and immersive experience as an audience member. The second category of the web series will focus on how people, including hopefully you, might become actively involved with community theater. Whether it's acting on stage, building sets, helping with stage lighting or sound, costumes, props, makeup, and a variety of other functions, we're always looking for eager people to help us and become part of our unique family. We'll talk about a variety of ways in which people become involved, and we'll be joined from time to time by guests talking about their experiences and in a variety of ways inform you as to how you might expect to become involved and how you'll benefit from the work with us. Some of our episodes will take us back in time as we present the history of Community Theater of Terre Haute specifically, but more broadly, the history and ongoing existence of community theaters in general all across the nation. While Community Theater of Terre Haute is unique in terms of our collective personality and approach to putting shows together, what we do is remarkably similar to the approaches used in most any theatrical production, from elementary school groups to professional theater troupes. Finally, the third category of our series will focus on education, presenting information about how a stage show develops and how it's produced. We'll be providing tips on how to audition, how to improve your auditioning, how to improve your acting skills, what goes into designing lighting, sound, costume, sets, makeup, and even how a show is directed, along with a host of other insider information, all aimed at making you a more informed and effective volunteer or patron as a result of your relationship with community theater. Overall, we hope that through this series, you'll gain a better understanding of what community theater is all about, how we contribute to the community around us, and how you might become involved. And if this brief introduction to our ongoing web series has triggered an interest on your part to become actively involved, please let us know. Our contact information will appear at the end of this segment. We'd love for you to become a part of our ever-growing and ever-changing Community Theater of Terre Haute family. As John Steinbeck once said, the theater is the only institution in the world which has been dying for 4,000 years and has never succumbed. It requires tough and devoted people to keep it alive. We certainly hope that you'll hear our call and become one of those devoted people committed to keeping theater alive right here in Terre Haute. And now, let's turn our attention to Gary Greiner, current president of the Community Theater of Terre Haute's Board of Directors. Hey Gary, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. The last couple weeks I've spent talking to some folks, and they've thrown out some questions they'd like me to put to you. So let's do it.
Great.
A couple of the questions have to do with community theater specifically, but a lot of the other questions have would probably have interest to members of boards across the country. So why don't we start out? You've been in the position for just coming up on a year now, right?
Yeah, well, since last July.
Okay, and you'll have one more year. They're 2-year terms?
That technically they're 1-year terms, but usually it's understood that it'll be a 2-year term. So the president is reelected every year.
Okay.
But probably if they'll have me, I'll be back for the second
All
year.
right. I hope so. You're doing a great
Well,
job.
great, thank you.
Talk to us about the past year. What have been your experiences
well-
and lessons learned?
Well, a little background how I kind of led up to that. I've been involved in Community Theater of Terre Haute since 1987, and had been on the board many years ago, and then came on the back on the board. I was invited about 5 years ago or so, and wanted to be president. I believe in this community. I've lived here all of my life, almost 60 years of it. So it was important to me, and it was an honor to be asked to be the president. I think I had heard kind of horror stories of what the presidents could be like. It really hasn't been that way. It's been a kind of a joyful thing on some level. There have been some obstacles, like in any leadership position, but our board is committee driven, as you well know, Mark.
Sure.
So the committees do their thing. I believe I'm very involved. I go to most committee meetings as time allows. But it has been a positive experience, and I encourage that leadership. Not everybody wants to do that.
Sure.
And so for me, it's been a pleasure. I don't know that it would be for everybody, but I enjoy it, and I hope I'm around another year after this coming July.
Well, let's talk a little bit about people who serve on boards.
Sure.
If they have aspirations for assuming an executive position, what is it they might do on the board itself to make themselves a bit more attractive to be considered?
Well, you have to be involved, and I think it's not unusual that when you're asked to be on a board to kind of have a getting to know the board period of time. And I even did that when I came back on, even though I knew the workings of community theater very well, I felt. But I probably didn't do anything for a couple or 3 months, honestly. And Kelly Coy, our past president, asked me to chair the parking lot committee, the fundraising. And so I did that, and it was pretty successful. So that got my, so to speak, my feet wet in the board, and I learned more of the processes and how that worked. So if you're interested in being on a board, whether it's with theater or any civic association or organization, I would suggest you get on the board and kind of feel it out a little bit and then decide what interests you. For instance, if I had been on a technical committee, I wouldn't have done well. That's not where my expertise or whatever expertise are, but whatever my expertise are, that is not where they are. So I would not have been good in a committee like that. But I'm good with fundraising and people in the community, so I think that's where my heart took me.
Let's talk a little bit about that fundraising. You mentioned we installed a new parking lot at Community Theater, and it was a hefty project. How much money was raised for that project?
Our goal was $400,000, and we, as of today, I believe we've raised $356. Dollars.
A little slow on the money
Yeah,
collection.
I'm not so proud now. About $356,000, and we came in under budget on the project. We went from 12 parking spaces to about 110.
Yeah.
And it was well needed for a very, very long time in our community. We had 2 very large $100,000 donors out of the gate, so that certainly helped us.
Great
to
start,
put us
sure.
on a great start.
Well, Community Theater in Terre Haute has got a pretty impressive record of fundraising for major projects. A couple expansions on the building since we first assumed it.
That theater, our actual physical building, was called the Best Theater, and it was built in the 40s. It's not as old as many people think it is. It was built in the early 40s as a movie theater. And my mother actually worked there when I was, way before I was ever born, when my parents were dating in the late 40s. My mother worked there at a little restaurant that was up front or something. She was 16 or something. So I grew up very close to that theater, about 3 blocks away. So it's very close to my heart, that building. The building, really no renovations. Well, a warehouse was put on in the 60s. And then we, the community theater, when I was on the board in the 90s, put on a huge renovation on the front. in 1997, 98 for the tune of about a little over $1 million. So that we are so blessed to have the theater that we have, the building. We recently hosted a festival for the state, and we take it for granted what a nice place we have and how pretty it is and good equipment and the great volunteers we have. But we found out from the other theaters who were wonderful, but they said, my gosh, how lucky are you to have this great facility.
And that is true. Over my life, I've been associated with, I think, 7 community theaters all around the Midwest. And when I first walked into this facility, I said, this is incredible. I mean, I was used to working in church parking lots and Grange halls.
Right.
And
It's built a set in Dad's barn kind of thing.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. And to see something like this is just incredible. If you were a part of a group starting a community theater from scratch, what advice would you have to someone in that position as they first thought about putting a board together? What has to be considered?
Well, I think the board has to be very diverse. You have to have, like I said earlier, people with technical background, fundraising background, organizational background, financial background, back with the fundraising. It has to be very, very broad, the board. Our board is very broad. And make sure you have enough interest in the community to support the theater. And like I just joked about building the set in Dad's barn and they will come, there's a little bit of truth to that. So make sure there's an interest in your community to support theater. Our theater is very lucky. We've been around a very long time, over 90 years, and we're still going strong.
Yeah.
So I think to test the waters and make sure there's an interest for it. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of money, it's all of those things.
I'm just going to put it to you. And this goes back to my history with 7 different
Sure.
community theater groups. Each of them has a different personality, a different approach, a kind of a different feel, but all of them are similar in many ways. And one point of similarity they have is that I've noticed that people outside the community theater group often look at that group as insular, closed, unfriendly, not willing to take on new people, and just keep away from us. And I don't know where that perception comes from, but it seems to be fairly common, and I note it here in Terre Haute as well. Where do you think it might come from, and what perpetuates that?
Well, obviously, we've discussed this before, and going way back in time, before I was ever involved in the theater, I heard those things about the theater. And the interesting thing to me is it's not that way at all.
Sure.
We have that reputation, and not only our theater, but other theaters. I've been involved there over 30 years. Some of the people that were there that are still there, I consider family of mine, very close friends. It's just a perception. I think theater people, even though I'm a businessman in our local community, and I'm involved in other boards, community theater is a special board. Once you go in there, you bond with everyone there. There are no secrets, and you fight and you love and you do all of those things. But where the perception comes from, I think because it's kind of a tight-knit group, I will compare it to, choose my words very carefully, to any organization out there, whether it would be a fraternity or a Masonic organization, or even churches sometimes, I think, have that reputation of being a little clique-like. And so I think it's just because we're a tight group, perhaps that's where the perception comes from. If you've never volunteered for a community theater, our community theater, or any community theater, give it a shot. We are friendly people, and we embrace, as board president, as you well know, I embrace the board members and everyone there. Come in, sit down, how was your week? And I think we all do that. We all have personal, you and I are friends through the board, but we're friends outside of the board. And not only you and I, but I'm friends with pretty much everyone at that theater.
Yeah.
So I know, I understand the question, and that's my best answer. I'm not sure what the answer is, unless you have a take on that.
I don't. But I will say from my personal experience, every time I walked into an organization, and I usually show up unannounced. I certainly did here at Community Theater, what was it, 11 or 12 years ago. Walking through the door, and I felt instantly at home.
Sure.
People were friendly. As a matter of fact, they very much appreciated because I was somebody new. One of the realities of community theater is that we rely on an influx of new people. We need new ideas, new perspectives, and frankly, some people leave. They burn out. They have life happens, so we constantly need that inflow of new people. And where the perception might have come from and why it's perpetuated, it's a mystery to me. I thought I'd ask you, maybe you could fill me in, but apparently you're more ready to answer that question
No,
than I.
I don't know I don't think there's a real reason for it. I think interesting is something you just said about the new influx of people. We do. And as being an old timer there, 30 plus years, it's interesting to me when the younger people or new people of the theater come in, they think they've discovered gold or something, which I smile about because I think, yeah, well, I discovered the gold 30-some years ago. You're rediscovering the gold. And what I mean by that is it's a new sense of energy and it's a new excitement, and they want to change things, which change is good sometimes. I'm getting to be older, so but I still like the change and I like the new blood.
Yeah. Well, we're certainly not at that point that people talk behind your back saying that's one of the old guys, been around forever. So
Close.
You
I'm really close.
You still got some years left on you before
Good,
that.
yeah.
In closing, what would you have people out there know about Community Theater of Terre Haute, board membership, leadership in general?
It's a great opportunity to grow as a person. If you're on the board, I'll talk about that first. It's been a great opportunity for me, not only as board president, but served as vice president previously and been on the board for many years. It's a great community networking situation. Let's just talk about it that way. It's a great way to meet people in our community. We bring to our community the best theater that we know how to do. We are the best actors, we are the best producers, the best directors that we know how to be in Terre Haute, Indiana. We feel that we do bring culture to our community. We are 100% volunteer. That's important to know. If you have interest in being on the board of directors of our community theater, reach out to us. You can call the theater directly or reach out to any of us, and I'm sure you'll provide contact information.
You bet.
So it's been a wonderful life experience for me, and I'm sure my life would be very, very different if I had not walked in off of 25th of Washington Street in the fall of 1987 and auditioned for a part, cold. So I'm the guy that did that. You did a similar thing. It's been a positive experience for me. I encourage anyone who has an interest in theater or getting involved in the community. You don't have to be a thespian, if we're going to use that word. You don't have to be a theater person to be involved in community theater, because there are a lot of our saying is where everyone plays a part.
Mhm.
That's really true.
Yeah, and it's interesting. People see us for putting on shows on stage.
Mhm.
There's a lot of work in the business end
Oh
as
my
well,
gosh,
and
yeah.
plenty of room for any kind of specialty and interest for anyone out there that might be interested.
Mhm.
Reach out,
Mhm.
just as we said in the introductory comments. And with that, I'll thank you once again for joining us, and see you on stage.
Thank you, Mark, for having me here today.
Thanks a lot.
Sure.